Welcome to the Minimalist CEO Podcast with Nate Lindquist. Nate created the Minimalist CEO Method to help business owners redefine and grow their businesses by finding new demand in places they never thought to look, where there's no competition. By following his opposite thinking strategy, Nate's coaching clients have grown their business up to 40% in just 2 months and created tens of millions of dollars in revenue. Nate himself has launched more than 140 businesses. On the show, Nate interviews successful business owners and experts who share the secrets you can use to have a better business and a better life.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Minimalist CEO Podcast. This is Nate Lindquist, your host. And what's really important here is my guest. So I'm going to introduce you to the CEO and founder of the Golden Group Roofing in Worcester, Massachusetts. I did not do the accent as a courtesy. We just had a joke about that. There are no Adam Sandler jokes today on the podcast. But you want to talk about someone who is making it happen, woman-owned business, and then roofing. Trying to bring those two things together. Very well recognized roofing company, getting local and national attention in her company. And she's rewriting the book on how that business goes. So without further ado, meet our guest, Greta Byrami. Did I say that right?
You did well.
That's
right, Greta Byrami.
Awesome.
Hello.
Thanks for being on the podcast, Greta.
I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk whatever you want to talk about.
Careful. So I love digging in deep to the stuff that makes businesses get the stuff. I think a lot of times there's Band-Aids. You'll hear me talk about let's get to the root cause. What really happened? How did you turn it around? What were those moments where you were scared, stuck? And instead of just adding to marketing, adding to messaging, adding to the business, I love to say, what did you take away? What did you cut away? How'd you get to the root issue? So that's what we'll spend our time on. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
So, and I don't make my guests cry, but it's funny. Could you imagine if that was the goal of the podcast? I think what you're doing is amazing. So could you tell us about yourself and how you got started in business?
Absolutely. So Greta Byrami, 30 years old, and here I am in the world of roofing. My story started in Albania, a little bit long way from here, where I grew up. And at the age of 10, my family decided that it was time to, move to the United States. And we landed here in Boston, Massachusetts, and we called this home because there's a big Albanian community here. And I found myself, craving as much as I could and taking as much as I could from the American dream, to be anything I wanted to be. And I wanted to be a law student. I wanted to, be in touch with my journalistic passion and activist soul. So I found myself wanting and craving just that for my future, except life had a different plan. At 17 years old, I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter, Kiara. And, that plan just went out the door, because here I am now at 17 years old, faced with the decision to either go and chase my career or give my daughter the life that, she deserves, or, what she's worth. So conflicted between these two paths, I chose family because that was very important to me at that time. I chose to unenroll and re-enroll in a state university because it was a bit more affordable for me and Freddie, my partner. And we took a lot of that money that we had saved for our college and put that back into providing and creating a home with me, Freddie, and my daughter, Kiara. So
you made something else right out of the gate. You made your soon-to-be child the priority. You made someone else the priority.
Absolutely.
And you had a dream of, if I'm not mistaken here, you had a dream of getting into the law and also had some aspirations for business and even activism. So you said, hey, all of these endeavors that are important to me, I'm going to stop. I'm going to hit the brakes. I'm going to find a path that focuses on taking care of my daughter.
Absolutely. And that was the thing, and sometimes in life we make all these plans and they're great, but sometimes life happens and things happen and we have to ask ourselves what's really important. And, when I look back at the decision, that was the right decision for me, because at that point in my life, what was important is that my daughter, no matter when she came into my life, whether it was 17, 27, or 30, I knew that she deserved a certain attention from me, and I wasn't going to have her be neglected of it just because she did come into my life unannounced at a time that I was not prepared. So that was the choice I made. And, I went through the daily struggles of being a young parent, of having to deal with the taboos of society and the way they viewed you, because now you are a young parent. Now everybody knows you've failed, and you failed in not only to yourself in the mirror, but you failed in front of your peers, and everybody else. So there's a lot of struggle that you have to overcome each day, and each day is a challenge. But I found a way to balance it out, and I found a way to keep going. And luckily for me, a green light or light bulb moment, or maybe a silver lining, came because I was in my senior year in my entrepreneurship class, and I was working on a project to bring to life a coffee shop called Tiramisu. And as I was working this whole year on this project and understanding everything on how to operate it, that summer I got a job in a construction company, and it was a residential construction company, but I saw that there were so many aspects of what I had learned in the college classroom that were just not applied to this field of construction. So I said, why not? And I did a little bit of research, but in the time that I was doing research to find why construction, and particularly the residential sector, didn't embody a lot of those feels that you normally would feel in hospitality, restaurants group, IT companies, why? And in the 3 years that I stayed within this construction company, I became an expert, but I also became an expert of realizing where improvements can be done. Because this crazy idea came to me that why shouldn't I open a roofing company? And
so you saw the gaps in the roofing company, and you also, did you say feels, certain feelings? Is it like what?
Yeah, I'm a big believer of feels. I feel that when you're drinking something, eating something, or dealing with somebody, there has to be a certain feel that you must be able to absorb from that other person in order to continue doing business with that person or their company or that relationship. If you don't feel good, if you feel used, abused, or you don't feel appreciated, why would you continue the conversation, or why would you be happy to refer that person? So those are things that I saw in the world of roofing, oftentimes in residential, were oftentimes missing.
I love that. So you've grown now, you started a roofing company, and I'm gonna put a little note. I want to go back to this in a minute, like how you actually started it. But this thing about feels is really interesting. So you get a lot of listeners here who are in the home services space, some in construction, lots of different business owners. But I think you've covered like a really important concept. So how does a business owner improve the feels that they create? Like if you were to give maybe like, do these 3 things and start improving the feels in your business. So you're sharing that energy.
Well, absolutely. Great question. It starts where your customer is seeing you for the first time. So if the customer is seeing you for the first time on the web, what energy are you giving there? Is it just generic? Is it just like everybody else? Or is it custom to what's important to you? Like if it's important to you to let customers know that you run a marathon every year because that's important to you, then as that being projected in that first instinct when people are getting to meet you, I think this is where a lot of homeowners fail. They fail to realize that the first introduction people have of you might be your website, your business card, your truck, or your social media. And if those places are really generic because you didn't take the proper time to invest, you maybe went with the blog that was, just put there and duplicated, or you picked a theme that looked pretty enough because somebody else had it, right there, you're falling short. And then that feeling continues. How are they interacting with the people they meet that represent your company? Are these individuals relaxed, or are they really pushy because, you've made it your goal to get those sales in? Again, if those are the energy that your company headquarters is all about numbers, oftentimes your salespeople or your consultants are oftentimes projecting that to the homeowner as well. And then what is the objective, right? Once the job is done, is it just to get the money? Money is really important, but if the customer feels that it's all about getting that final invoice clicked and paid, chances are referrals are going to be slim to none because they're going to realize that you never really cared about them. You were really in there to get that final check, so you can go to the bank and continue the cycle. So those are just some very vague ways to look at it. But if those 3 things, when you're sitting hearing this, if those 3 things make you a little bit uncomfortable in your seat, I know I've hit a point that yourself is a weakness that you have within your operations. So at the very minimum, think of those 3 things and see if there's room for improvement. And then there's so many other ways that you can go deeper and deeper.
I love that. I think the biggest thing in Minimalist CEO, I tell people, like, if they learn nothing else, make sure their business is a helping system. So if you're stuck, I always say, be consistent at the results you create, understand the vision of what you're creating is actually going to create in the future. So mission and vision. Absolutely. And then I say, get massively productive at doing that, start helping and see if it's helping. And it's like, people are like, that's so simple. I'm like, okay, sit down, look Absolutely. Externally and internally and say, am I helping? Is it helping?
Absolutely.
And I think it automatically causes you to have things unfold. So let's go back over what you said, because I want people listening, I want the listeners to really get this. This is a serious insight. Now, I'm just going to say, I think this is also like, you could have a brand called Woman's Touch Roofing because you're talking about feels here. And I think that resonates And that's a real positive. One of the things I learned in the book from David Data, I was going to hold it up if I had it nearby. I don't have it here, but it's the Way of the Superior Man. And ironically, most of that book talks about the masculine and feminine, puts a ton of energy into the power and the joy and the movement and the feelings and the emotion and the sharing and the story and the authenticity of women, but not just of women, of the feminine energy that can be brought to a business. And absolutely. I dig that. And I think the listeners are going to find something special here because, one of the things that we talked about in one of the businesses that I actually built it with my wife as a flipping training business. And one of the things is a lot of contractors in the space, and I don't know if you've noticed this, they tend to sometimes treat women significantly different, giving them the wrong prices, trying to look macho, trying to say, hey, basically, you probably don't get this stuff, so let me just tell you what it's going to take. Mm-hmm. And then it became a huge advantage for female investors to know how to go in and be the woman flipper and create a situation where they're just being the girl doing the flipping and let the guy make it very obvious that he's trying to take advantage and treat the woman like she doesn't know the business.
That's right. And if there's people still conducting business that way, I feel sorry that they haven't realized what the changes that have occurred.
Enter the contracting business and construction business.
And there's been a lot of change, and more so than ever, we're seeing women as decision makers. More so than ever, we're seeing women that want to be the sole lead in the project because they enjoy it. And, I know there's some businesses out there that still require husband and wife to be present. And that is such an old school mentality because you don't know if there is a husband or a wife. You don't know what the family dynamic looks like. So
I dig that. I will say this to give credit where credit's due. The program that I built with my wife, she basically built it. She branded it. She had all the experience and everything that she had done. And I went and helped her grow it. And she is a badass. I mean, she's one of the smartest people I know. And she keeps me on my toes, keeps me sharp. And I'm a very lucky man to have that.
Well, yes,
I see.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Absolutely, I said.
Yeah.
The yin to the yang, so.
Yeah, I see the strengths. I see the diffuse awareness. If looking at Queen's Code and Alison Armstrong, I've spent a good amount of time studying. Some of these books might have been referred to me by my wife, but studying the love languages, studying understanding feelings and the ideas. It's not all about me or resolving things. And there's this really good depth of. I highly recommend Queen's Code and Celebrating Partnership from Alison Armstrong. I don't know have you ever heard of those books?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing. It's like, whoa, I heard it and I was like, I think the longer we listen to this, the more trouble I'm going to be in. But there was this amazing, oh, that's why I do that. My project's underway. They talk about all these other things but yet you'll never know. So let's go back to the steps. I digress, but
that's okay.
I love that you said feels. And so let's go back. The three pieces that I got out of this, and tell me if I missed anything. Be real, invest in make the investment to be yourself. Don't be generic. And put it out there. Put out who you really are. So if you've got a hobby, if you've got something that makes you who you are, you don't have to polish and pretend and stock image your way into an industry. Be real. Yeah. And then the second one, you had interactions and touches. The idea of when you and your team, so the systems, the team, the people, the materials, whatever it is that's coming through, that's flowing through the business, diffuse awareness. There's one thing. Interactions need to have a feeling and say, I wonder what this feels like to us. I wonder what feeling this is creating. I wonder what promise this is keeping that creates a feeling of accountability, of certainty, of customization, of personalization. So that
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the objective, do people feel that the outcome is the transaction, or do they feel that the outcome is maybe more of a relationship and the idea of taking care of people before, during, and after the sale, and just appreciation and, loving your customers, standing in their truth, maybe telling them when, there's plenty of times I've said no, slid checks back to customers and said, this is not the right step for you right now. So did we cover, those are the three core pieces of your feels system?
Yeah, I think there's definitely more that you can go in depth in each one, but those are the very bases of it. So if at the very least you check all those off, there's so many more ways that you can get creative, how to increase that feel. And of course, the feel, how can you customize the process for your client and make it proprietary to your business? Mm-hmm. How can you customize the sales presentation and make it proprietary to your business? Again, when you're roofing or when you're selling a service, the only thing that's proprietary is the service. It's not the products. The products belong to a manufacturer. I always say this. I always tell you in my team, don't be caught up in presenting the material, because the material, you can go over it quickly, but the material belongs to another company who's doing likely a very good job at, voicing to their clients why they should be the materials for that home. But you, as a service provider, you have to worry about, or you have to focus rather on what's proprietary about what you offer as you bring that product line to the consumer. So for us, as we bring roofing to you, the only thing that's proprietary is, of course, the installation, but also the process that we've created in working with our team, that it's not duplicatable if you work with somebody else.
So roofing is a pretty generic service, and people say, hey, that's construction. It's probably one of the most hardworking, uglier, most difficult, weather has such an impact on it. I've met some roofers, and I would have to say they work really hard, and some of these guys are tough dudes that are like up the ladder, down the ladder, up the ladder, down the ladder, maybe a lift from time to time. Boom, it starts raining, 3 more trips. So how did you look at the construction job that you got and say, ooh, I'm going to go, hang a shingle out to start a business? How did you go into roofing? Why did you pick roofing?
I picked roofing because I saw a need. I saw a need to take that hospitality background of the customer's always right, whatever the customer wants. There's certain money I have to, when I go into a relationship with a client, it's really truthfully about making them satisfied. Sometimes you might have to cut a check back to a client to reach that point of satisfaction, but that's no different than a restaurateur that comps a check, right? Like, that's no difference. And I think when you understand that there's some rooms for improvement, that's why the roofing just sounded so doable to me, because I had also spent 3 years working for a roofing company. I had learned the ins and out. I had been on installs every single day. I had sat on the ridge, passing shingles every single day, stripping, cleaning. It wasn't pretty. I did it because at that time, the market wasn't doing very good. There wasn't really many people hiring international affairs students. So I said to myself, I'm learning here. They're paying me well, but instead of going back to international affairs, now that the market has picked up, why not open a roofing company? Why not take everything I've learned in the college classroom and everything I thought corporate was going to teach me, and why not pair it up with this need to be transparent, this need to realize that the customer is always right, and every other business knows it too. There's hotel groups that that take care of their clients. There's restaurants that take care of their clients. There's a lot of industries. And why construction overlooks this process? Why does this construction make it so hostile for the client? If they don't like something, that's too bad. That's your problem.
Would you say that you took over and built a business that essentially, if you look in general, was a broken sort of high contrast market where most of the roofing companies just weren't taking care of their customers, so you decided to?
Absolutely. And I decided to do it in a way that was going to complement my style and my integrity. And my style is that I don't like to be price negotiated. I like to have the whole power. Maybe I'm a dominant person. I don't know. I'm an Aries, right? So maybe I like to be in power, but that's what I like my brand to be my own and to reflect what's important to me. And I don't want to ever strip power from a homeowner. I'd rather give them all the knowledge I possibly can and let them make the best decision for them. And maybe that's a laid back approach, but I like to think that that's a very, I don't want to say egotistic approach, but it's an approach where almost like I know what I'm offering and I'm going to give them the power to make their own decision.
Including you saying no if they're not willing to pay your price.
Absolutely. That goes both ways. Absolutely.
Yeah. So sometimes you know a lot. Do you put yourself in a place like, listen, we do it right. It's going to be a great experience. It almost sounds like you're like the concierge of roofing services.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to pay, no ticket, no laundry. If you don't want to make the commitment, it's okay. Someone else will. Is that how you
Absolutely.
do it?
Absolutely. And with that approach in mind, I know it's scary to maybe some people hearing right now. It's scary and they might think I'm crazy, but I can guarantee you that 50% of those people will come back to you the next morning. We have it happen here at least once a week. So at some point in the week, somebody's going to come back in here and somebody's going to tell you that, you know what, that approach works, because a client loves when you stand your ground, because it shows that you know your worth and you're not willing to discredit it for anybody else.
That's interesting. I love that. And I think also there's such a power in the Minimalist CEO method to say no. So that leads me to, you grew a business to over $5 million or almost $5 million and about to pass it. If you had to list like, hey, listen, here's the top one or two challenges that I face to move from the, hey, someday I'd like to have $1 million business to you're about to blow by 5 million. What are the challenges? Maybe the top two, because obviously we have a limited amount of time that we could shine some light on for our listeners.
Structure. I think that sometimes being a CEO at a young age and being an entrepreneur at the young age, visions come to us. And just because you're a visionary doesn't mean you're an executor all the time. I think there's a fine line between being the visionary and the entrepreneur of a business, the true entrepreneur of it, and being the executor of it, right? Being that chief executor. I think they're two different roles. I think,
right?
Yeah, I think there's two different, it's a different thing to say I'm the entrepreneur and I'm the CEO. I don't think that I truthfully own the title CEO, not even today. I wouldn't say that I'm the best CEO out there because I see myself as very much a visionary. I'm the person that comes into the room because I was driving and an idea hit me. I'm the person that wakes up at 2 a.m. and grabs my notes and writes something for marketing that I want to try. I'm that person. Yeah. And I think sometimes the biggest struggle in this growth has been that as an entrepreneur, I have to find a way to become a CEO as we grow through these numbers. Because obviously I'm not in a position to relinquish that control completely to somebody else. But I almost wish that I had gone around it the other way. I almost wish that maybe I had spent a little bit more time mirroring somebody else. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we don't have that because sometimes businesses happen overnight. We get so excited, we start them, but we miss out on that training part of it. We miss out on that bigger piece part of it, of that structure part of it. We move along and try to grow and develop as the business keeps growing. And sometimes it could be a deadly thing because you might grow a $10 million operations and it might be out of control.
We've seen that over and over again. So as a contract CEO advisor and a minimalist CEO, over and over again, CEOs get in touch with me and they say, I've got the vision, I've got the goals, I even have the sales. You know, I meet with people who are doing 10, 20, $30 million in business or more. And I'm going to share something with you. So part of the strategy in the conversation that I go through was my biggest weakness. I have the visionary part, I have the creative, but when you talk about the challenge of execution, the speed of implementation between an idea and the action and who's going to do it and letting go so it can get done so you don't become the bottleneck, I noticed I tended to, and a lot of business owners do in the entrepreneur space, tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just going to do something else. Or they throw everything at the project, including the kitchen sink. And so there'd be client work. Let's use my marketing firm as an example where it'd be like, might be building a marketing project, might be building a website project. And this is years ago. And I would do everything that could possibly get done for that client to make sure they were happy and also feel those insecurities as a business owner and do more and do more and do more and do more. But when I sat down and wrote down processes, I came up with something really important is what is the specific description of what I'm going to do and what I expect in my experience and that the client expects and that they want to see done as an outcome. And when will I know it's done?
Right.
Then what are the action steps that have to be taken? What's the timeline? And then what is the actual outcome? What will be in someone's hands, either tangibly or pretty darn close to it, that confirms that it's done? And I found that I was able to deliver less, have happier clients, be more available for other people in the planning process. So now as part of the Minimalist CEO Method, my team and I show clients, show CEOs, hey, you're missing this CEO piece.
Yes.
And do you want to, it's actually not, it's simple. It's not as complicated as it tends to look. So I give you a ton of credit. You went out, you took the leap, you build the business. Let's face it, you're about to pass the $5 million mark and I'm sure go well beyond that. There's someone who knows those steps, or you could very easily decide that you want to adopt those steps. But even being willing to say, I don't know those steps is a real huge strength.
Absolutely.
So that leads to this. Do you want in your business to hold on to the execution and the, what you might call the operations part? Or do you want to be in the role of visionary leader and put an operations director or a senior project manager or a COO in place? Mm-hmm. That's what they love. I mean, what do you think?
Absolutely. That's actually great. So that's what I've been doing in my business for the last year, even through COVID and everything else has been going on. I have designed it in a way that I don't have to be involved in the daily operations. And my role as CEO is very much just a title at this point. It's necessarily not that I'm involved in any CEO type of structures. I do have individuals in place that I've hired. I've been really grateful to, absorb a lot of young talent. I've made roofing sexy, because I have been able to take a lot of recent grads with master's degrees, and tell them to, hey, you know what, roofing is an incredible industry to invest. Like, let me tell you why you don't need to go into IT or web design or graphics. Let me tell you why you should go into roofing. And I'm very fortunate for that. But yes, I think that is what I would always invest. That's actually what I would advocate to any good entrepreneur. It's like, if you're good at coming up with ideas, the only way you're going to push your brand between 5, 10, 15, 20 million is if you allow people to execute your ideas, because you're going to have so many ideas. And if you're just stuck executing every single one, then, you're going to lose so much time and so much of your energy in just being stuck on that one idea, when you can have all 10 of your ideas being executed by the people that you've appointed on your team.
Okay, so you shared a couple of things here. You said you made roofing sexy, and yeah, and you started talking to graduates and people who might go into websites, might go into IT. So there's interesting statistics right now, and I'm sure you're aware of it, that there's been a decline in people going into the trades, into the vocation of doing the work of blue collar roofing, of construction, carpentry, any vocation that's the blue collar trades. There's not people who want to drive excavators as much. There's not people who want to get their license and get certified to be an electrician. So making roofing sexy, how do you make it also attractive to the people who are going to do the roofing, not just the people who are going to manage the business?
You make it attractive by allowing them to be recognized for the craftsmanship that they do every day. But obviously the paycheck is going to be number one. You have to pay people really well, and you have to take care of them in the winter time. So what we realize is, if we're able to pay people through the winter consistently what they would have made in the summer weeks or fall weeks, they're happy and they want to continue working for your company. So we actually pay our workers even if they are off for 6 to 8 weeks. So that right there is a sweet point for everybody. The second sweet point is developing installation and trainings. I mean, GAF, one of our manufacturers that we work with, and Certainty, another one, they love the fact that we bring our installers to all the trainings, and we give them this opportunity that if some of them maybe didn't go to college, they very much feel like this is a college education, where they come in for Monday meetings, they have trainings, they have ways that they can incorporate themselves. So they're not just roofers, right? They're craftsmen. And they are working and they're delivering a trade that's dying. And we are part of that little bit of hope that still remains out there, that people can be attracted to roofing, because it is a very lucrative industry, and it is an industry that they can apply themselves and make a great living. And when they get a little older, which they do, a lot of our guys step down from the roof and they join us as foremen or construction supervisors, because I would say that the average roofer usually retires from the roof at about 40, 45 years old, simply because it is obviously hard to be harnessed and be dangling off a roof all day. So.
Okay, well, bringing sexy back to roofing is really great. And I also think the idea, like seeing it as a life cycle with a future, makes it really compelling. Like, you could become a site supervisor and all that. So
absolutely.
All these things that you've accomplished, are you 30 or in your 30s?
I'm 30s. I'm exactly 30, yeah.
30 years old. It's amazing. And you're actually named 40 under 40 or class of 2017 by the Worcester Business Journal. So you're a peak performer in the business space. You received the Big 50 Award and the Bizz Award 2020 by Remodelers Magazine. Can you tell us about this and how you managed to have this recognition? You got a multi-million-dollar business and you have a family. You've got work-life balance to consider. How do you bring that together and stay sane and healthy in the process?
I do a lot of things that I do because I enjoy them, but also it's a commitment to the industry. So when you look at advertising, there's a great amount of Google ads you can do out there. There's a great amount of SEO you can do out there and social media marketing. But the biggest part of your marketing is your contribution to the bigger picture as a CEO. We see it done in corporate America. We see it done all over the world. So you are no different. So what are you doing as a CEO today to reflect back to the greater good of the industry or the community or the state that you're a part of? And if you can't answer too much other than the very basic, then that's really maybe one of the reasons why your company isn't getting the PR or the knowledge that it really, or the credibility that it needs to continue moving forward. So my involvement into all these things and my reason for being nominated is simply due because I'm always trying to put about 10 to 15 hours a week to the bigger picture. What organizations can I be a part of? Where can I contribute my knowledge of Golden Group? Because it's going to come back to Golden Group. Essentially, all these 15 hours of work, this is priceless PR. This is priceless marketing. It's only going to it's only going to affect positively the brand as I continue to go out there and become this, this image of woman in the trades, because essentially it is a woman in the trade that's linked to Golden Group, and that is the brand that I represent. So my involvement, I believe every CEO should do this.
Yeah, what's powerful about what you're saying is I know that a lot of people go to chamber events, networking events, PM events, morning events, breakfast.
Those are, yeah.
Right? But a lot of times you hear their reason for going there is this whole sort of, BNI culture. Nothing against BNI, but if the idea is like it's all about networking to get the lead to make the sale, from what I hear from you, it's care, give back, be connected.
No, yes. So I was going to stop you. Those
relationships.
Absolutely. And I was going to stop you to say that those are great, but those have nothing to do with the bigger picture. Bigger picture, in my perspective, is I belong to the Entrepreneurship Council of the State University here, and I work as a mentor with the professors to help guide the graduating class that have aspirations to become future entrepreneurs in our community. Because me being their mentor every day, me meeting with them in Zoom calls 2 to 3 hours a week, I'm helping them become part of the bigger picture in the community. And it doesn't have to be roofing, but this is my involvement to them. And also I sit as a treasurer on the New England Roofing Contractor Board that governs, 10 states all the way from Maine to Delaware. So my purpose of doing that, again, is to the bigger picture. Like, what can I do to benefit roofing in the 10, 15 years ahead, and have it be something that affects it even long after I've departed from it.
So this
I depart?
Yeah, this is legacy stuff, and you really do care. So if someone wants to, in their business, go out and build these relationships with aspiring entrepreneurs to help them understand their trade, their industry, their business, do they reach out to intern organizers? They reach out to entrepreneur classes, professors, universities? Who do they reach out to?
Absolutely.
All of
Absolutely. At vocational schools, I work with interns from vocational schools. Vocational schools are always looking for you to intern one of their students. Of course, you will have to pay the intern for the time, but don't view it as, I don't want to pay this intern. View it as the bigger picture. It's not going to cost you a lot of money, and that intern might actually bring so much wealth of knowledge. But even if they don't bring as much as you need, the bigger picture, you're helping somebody out there. And so we have a relationship with the vocational schools. We have a relationship with the state universities, but there's so many more ways to get creative with it. All you have to do is get involved and see where you could apply yourself, not just as a roofer or a plumber or electrician or whatever trade you do or industry you serve, but as an entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, all businesses have the same fundamentals.
Yeah. That's true. I say to my clients, and all the time you'll hear me say on my interviews and on podcasts, is that it's not about the industry, it's about the model. If you understand the business model, you understand how to build a helping system, they're almost all the same in almost all the same ways. But one core that I'm seeing here with you, and before we leave, I do have just one more quick question because we only just have a minute or two left, but I see a theme of really caring about helping people. You're fascinated with finding out what can help them even better, and just a caring about what you're doing. So I would like to know, to care for yourself in the midst of building this and to bring the best that you can to your business, do you have any rituals that you do as you get started in your day to make sure that you're booted up and ready to go each day?
Yeah. My ritual is very simple. It might be boring to some people, but I enjoy the simplicity of thinking my own thoughts. So I'm European, so that means I have to have espresso every morning and think to reflect on what I can do better, think what I did wrong, what I said wrong to a friend. I don't know, random stuff comes up to my mind all the time. But I love to just be quiet and self-reflect and let my thoughts guide me. I'm one of those people that sometimes will ride the car with no sound, because it's very important sometimes to just hear your own thoughts and like what your core, what your soul is telling you about yourself. Because sometimes we move really fast, and maybe some of our internal character traits are trying to tell us something, whether we flawed at something or whether we did great at something. And then, of course, on top of that is my family. Every morning I have to have breakfast with my children. It's a ritual. It doesn't matter if we have to get up early. I have to see them, because I have to make sure when I look into their eyes and when I see them like saying, "Mom, you did this," or "Mom, I saw the way the student looked at," like that is my fuel. And everybody has different fuels, but those are two rituals, my espresso time and my breakfast with my children is extremely important to me.
I love
I have
that.
to start that day like that. I have to look into their eyes, because also when I look into their eyes and their innocence, it keeps me humble too, and it keeps me innocent too. Sometimes in business we deal with a lot of stuff, and some stuff can become great, but when you look at something as simple and as innocent as a child, you realize that that's what life's all about. It's about that simplicity and that sincerity that a child has, and you got to remember that every morning as you deal, because sometimes in business, certain things can become gray because it's just the nature of the beast in all of us.
It's a wonderful decision filter too. And I do have a workshop that I work on that I think it's right in alignment with what you're talking about, which is if you're making a business decision, it's a tough decision. Just put a kid in the seat across from you and think, what would I do to really care for this kid? What's the right thing to do? And it's like, whoa, all of a sudden, and even that feeling you might have of frustration, anger starts to fall away and turns into understanding. So my last question before we go would be, and you already shared with me, we're going to share your website so people can get in touch with you in the show notes. I'll make sure people can reach out. And you have a billboard. So we're going to say you can have a big billboard. The whole world can see it. And on that billboard, you're going to share a message to other business owners about what's essential. And
what's essential, like not about my business?
Anything that you want to share. It could be it could be business advice for sure. Maybe there's a personal one over here, but this is just what's essential, a message for them, for their business. What's essential? Yeah,
of course. So I actually did a billboard. I don't know if this applies, but I did a billboard that was it caught a lot of attention, and feel free to use it. It said, I put in a big billboard, craftsmanship we're proud to stand on. And that's all I put. And I just put my logo, and people loved it. I didn't sell them anything. And I just said, if I'm proud to stand on top of it, and I'm proud to wear it, that's the most important thing. When you're truthfully proud to wear your logo and you're truthfully proud to watch other people wear your logo, I think that is where you've hit such a sweet spot, because it's craftsmanship and detail that you're proud to stand on. So that could be, like the business. If you're not proud of the work that you do and you're not willing to have it be criticized by the top of the industry when no one's looking, then you have to fix something. If you're not proud of every single thing you put out there, then you have to fix something. So every day I know that when I drive by one of my installs, every day when I know I meet one of my clients, every day when I see one of my staff members wear my logo, I'm proud of all those moments, because I know there's nothing to be shameful of. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's one of my billboards.
There's a lot of promotional conversation, and what you're saying out there is you got to be willing to put your signature in the corner. You got to be willing to stand behind, put your stakes in the ground. But I love it. So craftsmanship, we're proud to stand on. I love that. And this has been a great interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Greta Byrami, we now know you just a little bit more. You're brilliant. This interview, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. Thank you for being on the Minimalist CEO podcast.
Thank you for having me. And if I can be of any assistance to any aspiring entrepreneurs, I'm always there, just a text, email, call away. Anything I can do to make you seek out your very own success. Like I said, when I was 17 years old, I didn't think that home ownership would ever be a dream of mine. So here I am today, making other people's dreams of home ownership become true. So
it's brilliant. Well, thanks again for being on the show, Greta. And to all our listeners on the Minimalist CEO podcast, this is Nate Lindquist. I'm really grateful and glad that you've been here. Take the time to download, share the podcast, check us out. You might be watching this in the video on YouTube. And this has been an awesome interview. Check back soon. We have other episodes coming, and thanks for being here. Thanks, Greta. And we'll talk to everybody soon.